I give the floor to Daniel Harris from Kendraio.
Thank you.
That will be having conversation with Turo Pekari from Copyright Management Organization in Finland, Teosto.
Thank you very much, Goncia. Just first an introduction for myself. My name is Daniel Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Kendraio. Kendraio is a non-profit interoperability advocacy initiative. We are developing a free and open source dashboard application for rights owners, music makers, managers, and record labels to manage and track their digital media assets, gigs, collaborations, and associated rights across multiple third-party service providers. Kendraio app integrates with CMOs and PROs, online distribution, gig listing sites, and social networks via their APIs. Our app also enables users to compare and analyze fan engagements with sales reports from multiple sources simultaneously. We are very proud that we are funded by the EU as a partner of Bloomen, and have also recently won a place on the Next Stage Challenge Accelerator program. And interestingly, we have integrated our app with Teosto's API, which brings me neatly to Turo. Hello. Turo,
hello.
What is Teosto and what do you do there?
Oh, first of all, thanks for inviting me here. It's a big pleasure. Teosto is a rights management organization of musical authors and music publishers in Finland, which actually makes it pretty cool. We are a small society compared to the big ones like PRS or GIMA or SACEM, but we still have around 70 million euros annual turnover, over 33,000 members, and we are also doing pan-European licensing for online content, and of course through our reciprocal agreements, licensing music for international content in Finland. Like many of you might know, in Finland we really embrace innovation, and Teosto has been in the forefront, also pushing CMOs to adopt new technologies through our innovation platform Teosto Futures Lab, and through our international collaborations in different areas like blockchain technology, AI, biosensor technology, music education, and ed exports, for example. If we think about collective management organizations, they are kind of unique creatures because they are old. They are like really, really old. I think the first of them, SACEM from France, was established in 1852, I think, by the time when people started to go out to concerts listening to classical music. And right. Most of European CMOs were formed during the 20s, during the rise of broadcast TV and radio, like Teosto as well. They are all non-profits owned by their members. So just remember that all the time when people are whining about that CMOs should disappear, I will say that we are going to stay around as long as our owners will find us useful.
I didn't say anything, by the way. Wonderful. Okay, so where is the pain for you and your CMO? What's really difficult at the moment? What creates a lot of pain for everyone there?
There's a number of things. I've been working for Teosto already for quite some time, almost 10 years, if I remember right. When I started to work here, the whole landscape was different. During that time, I think we were processing annually some millions of lines of data in order to distribute royalties to our members. Nowadays, we are talking about trillions of lines of data. Everything is increasing. We have growing number of music releases, growing number of musical works, growing number of music creators and artists, growing number of stakeholders in musical works and releases. In popular music, it's normal that one hit song might have 20 or 30 different stakeholders, co-writers, publishers, not to mention sub-publishers in different territories. And in many occasions, it will make music licensing and royalty distribution quite messy, and some of the stakeholders might get their money faster, some a bit slower, depending who's the one managing your rights.
So in terms of technology, surely if with the massive increase of data you're having to process, don't you just chuck more computing power at it? Won't that suffice?
Yes, that's one answer to that. But of course, computing power, it's always a choice on how much money can you spend to distribute money to the right people, or using a little bit less money and distribute money to at least all of the right people. And at the same time, direct licensing is pretty much coming the new norm in the online world. So what it means, for example, to CMOs is that you are pretty much worth what your local repertoire is worth, because you can't anymore rely on the revenues that we've been getting from licensing of international content, and that is something which is making the business more difficult, especially to smaller markets.
I'm curious just about that direct licensing. What is that? The artists are going direct to CMOs in each country?
It might be happening sooner or later also, but with direct licensing, I'm mainly talking about publishers licensing directly their content with digital music platforms, and also CMOs directly licensing their content pan-European ways, or even globally, so they are not anymore waiting that their sister society is distributing the money to them. So pretty much getting rid of at least one middleman in the process.
Right. Is that kind of one of the reasons why the GRD didn't work? Because those lines are not really available anymore.
Yeah, but just to continue what you were saying, at the same time, self-governance of rights is also a rising phenomenon, and especially in Finland, we are in the forefront in that. Teosto is actually giving its members wider possibilities to take out even a specific work in several specific music usage areas to self-governance and license it by themselves. And I'm pretty sure that this is a thing which will also come much more common in the future in other countries as well. And in order to individual people to self-govern their rights, they need services to do that, whether they are provided by CMOs or by third-party services, or as white label third-party services. That's something to watch out in the future.
Do you think the trend is that those services are being provided to artists and to composers? Do you see that happening?
Yes, it's going to happen, and that's something we are working on here in Finland as well.
Okay, so maybe should we talk a little bit about the technology that kind of you're coming across, and how that either helps or hinders? I mean, how are you solving these problems? What's of interest to you? What are you implementing in your own in Teosto itself?
I think one big thing that I am working on and trying to constantly push is obviously about the issues and problems with data. I don't want to talk about too much about the value gap. I think the data gap in music industry is a more important one. And for music industry players like CMOs or publishers and labels, it's my constant mission to talk about data sharing and interoperability issues and usage of APIs in order to exchange data between different stakeholders in the business, because I believe that it's the only way we can make this business survive and flourish, because there's not going to be one big solution for rights management. There's going to be several databases. They just need to talk with each other, whether they are using blockchain or not.
So it sounds like a kind of even a federated or a even wider kind of network of interconnecting databases that you're talking about, all with APIs. And are you seeing that kind of trend happening in the CMO world? Is that being investigated?
A little bit, but not enough. Right. And especially if any one of you have read the new European data strategy by the Commission, there's a lot of talk about cross-industry data spaces and new ways to gain the untapped potential when you are exchanging data between different industries. So we are not anymore just talking about ISWC codes and ISRC codes, which is of course a big problem in the music to match them, even if it really sounds not so difficult to do that, but it still is. We have identifiers of individual creators, IPI for songwriters and publishers, and IPN number for artists and musicians. But in the future, I think if we think about data sharing in general and cross-industry, if we want to unleash creativity of people and consumers to make new multimedia content, we also need to take care that unique identifiers like ISAN or for audiovisuals, or ISBN for books, or ISSN for journals, and more generic codes like ISCC and ISNI are something that we need to take into account.
Yeah. And do you see that happening, a move towards that, or is that still something that needs to be very, very pushed in order to meet European directives?
It needs to be pushed, but there's something going on in Finland into that direction, and I am hoping that we will have some interesting news sooner or later.
Wonderful. Let's hope it's sooner. Should we talk a little bit about blockchain?
Yep.
Yeah, just before we get too deep into it, I just, about the pervasive, just generically, what's attractive to you about blockchain? What are the elements that kind of like fire you up?
Blockchain has been in our radar for already many years, and I kind of almost accidentally ended up as a kind of usual suspect in music industry blockchain talks and panels, basically being the voice of music publishers and music rights management organizations. That's been a good thing because I've managed to get to know basically all of the relevant people in this domains, some talking here today as well. But if we think about what are the attractive things or relevant use cases in music industry or collective management, well, blockchain technology is, of course, it's a powerful way to verify any kind of data recorded or stored into a distributed ledger. The data can be about transactions, about ownership, or about identity. And as we've seen, during the last couple of years, there has been a number of new companies, some already disappeared, some still alive, and different initiatives playing around with different areas of music business. Of course, claim resolution being one of them, which is the topic of Bloomen as well, identity validation, metadata management, automated licensing with smart contracts, and actually also self-governance of rights, which is also close to what Bruno and Revelator is doing.
Absolutely, and it's very interesting. You've been you've tracked this over a long period of time, and I came across blockchain a few years ago, and it felt like it was going to be all pervasive, and everyone was jumping on board, and I just wondered, given that timeline, what happened? I mean, it might be a technological thing, or it might be more of a marketing thing, but it felt like it was going to be huge, and then it didn't quite get there. What do you think happened?
Nothing happened. Blockchain failed, and
really?
There are a couple of reasons why it failed. Basically, when music industry started to discuss about blockchain, it was mainly a kind of an ideological thing about cutting the middleman, and we need to get rid of the dirty music business people, and as we have seen, it's actually not a good way to develop a business with music industry people, to tell them that we don't need you anymore. And at the same time, personally, I believe that, believe it or not, we are living the golden age of middleman. If you think about, for example, how CMOs are doing nowadays, better than ever. And actually, it's also a growing competitive space, because nowadays pretty much anyone can establish their own CMO, like we have seen with Unison in Spain, or Soundreef in Italy, or Copyright Delta in the Netherlands. And I believe that more and more players, also not just non-profit players, are entering into this field. And that's something which will make this industry much more complex than it used to be.
Really interesting. I love the golden age of the middleman, or middle person, I should say. But yeah, I think that really encapsulates kind of the opposite way of looking at it, because back in the day, it was like, yes, it's going to be an end-to-end situation it's trustless. There won't be any middle people. So yeah, that's an interesting thing, that now we're actually turning that on its head.
Yeah, but another reason why blockchain failed is the simple thing which our friends in Blocker and Revelator and BMAT know very well, is that the process of selling something to music industry organizations, especially CMOs, take a lot of time and also deep pockets. Many of the players around would not be alive anymore if we think about companies like Session or Imogen Heaves Mycelia, unless their founders would have deep pockets. So it takes many years to convince music industry players about buying the idea of new technology and solutions, and that's something many startups have to deal with all the time.
Of course. So maybe we should see if there's any silver linings. Could you give us a kind of are you at all positive that this is gonna, that there's going to be uses for blockchain and technologies?
Yeah, even though blockchain failed, it didn't disappear, and I believe that we are going to see finally more and more real business cases around blockchain technology. It started as a tech thing, and it was probably not a good thing for wider adoption. And if we think about companies entering into this field, I would say that they should focus on solutions that do not require total or wide adoption from the whole industry, because that's something which is difficult. So blockchain should be, and it can be, a part of the solution, but not the solution.
Right. Okay, so your advice there is it's got to work with at least, with the first person. It shouldn't need 100,000 people for it to work, kind of thing. That's
of course. It shouldn't need 150 CMOs.
Right. Thank you. And talking of CMOs, where do you think they're going to be in 10 years? What's going to happen?
That's a good question. And in my work, I'm also leading our corporate foresight works here at Teosto, and we are having a lot of discussions about what's the world going to be, for example, in 2030, and nobody knows. In the CMO world, there's always a lot of politics involved, and that's something which makes it also a bit difficult. Personally, I would see that it would make sense that in 5 to 10 years' time, there would be organizations offering rights management services in a generic way, not just for authors or recordings. They should be able to do the both. It's just for historic reasons we have different organizations providing these services. And at the same time, like I mentioned, what is already kind of happening in Finland is that CMOs might be in the future more and more service providers for individuals to license their own IP and content. And of course, some, especially bigger CMOs, might be also service providers to other CMOs. So what's something which SOCAN is already investing a lot, and SACEM with their U-Rights platform, for example.
Like white labeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just riffing on that theme, do you see a world where like all the lines get really blurred, and like record labels and CMOs, and it's just one big mishmash of service providers all sort of like offering bits of the pie, as it were?
It's pretty much already happening. We've already seen that a lot of companies are looking for new positions in the value chain, especially in publishing. If we think about what Downtown is doing, acquiring a lot of different companies to build a kind of full stack music industry model, or Cobalt. So there's a lot of things happening in that area, but also CMOs have been acquiring companies, and distributors are becoming publishers, and publishers are becoming distributors, and it might get complex.
It's going to be a very exciting world. Turo, I think we've come to time. On behalf of Bloomen, I'd really like to thank you very much for your concise thoughts and entertaining ideas. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.